Every board has that one user everyone remembers, even after the account is gone. Their posts are wiped, but the reactions aren't. This is LurmoStories, and tonight we're piecing together what they said from the fragments that remain. Listen carefully. The gaps are where it gets truly disturbing.
I've been working at the same office for 3 years now, typing away at a desk in the middle of a row of identical cubicles. Most of the time, it's the same repetitive work: entering data, formatting reports, double-checking numbers, that sort of thing. There are a few people I chat with occasionally, mostly about trivial office gossip or the weather, but it's mostly quiet. The hum of the fluorescent lights overhead is constant. The sound of keyboards tapping around me is steady. Sometimes I wonder how many of us are just drones, moving through the motions, doing the same thing every day until we can barely remember how we got here. The office is open plan, which means there's no privacy, no small corners to hide in. It's just one giant room with desks crammed next to each other, everyone's conversations blending into a dull noise in the background. I can't say I mind it. I've always been good at blocking out the distractions. There's something kind of comforting about it too. It's like there's no expectation to stand out. You're just one more person in a sea of cubicles, your identity reduced to a name on a desk, your face hidden behind a computer screen. That's how it's supposed to be, right? The job is nothing special, just something I do to pay the bills. I didn't expect it to be glamorous. I didn't expect to climb the corporate ladder. I just needed something steady. But for some reason, it feels like something's changing. I first noticed it about a week ago.
It was a regular Monday morning. I got in early, like I always do, grabbed my coffee from the machine, and settled into my cubicle. The usual paperwork was piled on my desk. I clicked the mouse, waited for my computer to boot up. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. I went to log into the company directory, an internal database we use to look up contacts, departments, phone numbers, and all that. The login page took a few extra seconds to load, which was odd. It's never slow, usually. I pushed the thought aside and typed in my credentials. The page opened normally, but there was something off. The search bar was already populated with my name, first and last, as if it was trying to predict who I wanted to look up. That's strange, I thought. I've never noticed it doing that before. I clicked on my name, expecting the usual employee details: my job title, extension number, email address, the standard stuff. But when the profile loaded, it was different. My name was gone. The space where it should have been was blank, just a long, empty line. My job title was there, data entry clerk, but the rest of the page was empty. No department, no contact info, just nothing. I blinked, refreshed the page. Same thing, just that long blank space where my name should have been. At first, I thought it was just a glitch. It happens, right? IT always messes something up. I brushed it off, just another issue to report. So I tried searching for other people. My coworkers, some of the managers, everything looked fine. Their names, positions, phone numbers, everything was there. But when I searched for my name, again, nothing. I closed the browser, opened it again, and checked the directory one more time. Nothing had changed. I didn't tell anyone, at least not right away. I figured it was just a weird bug. But then it started to get stranger. The next day, when I logged into the system, my name was gone again. This time, it was the company-wide employee list that I noticed it on. Other employees' names were fine, but mine? Blank. I tried to brush it off, tried to distract myself with my work, but I couldn't help it. The more I thought about it, the more it gnawed at me. I wasn't on the employee list anymore. No one else seemed to notice, or if they did, they didn't say anything. Maybe they thought I was just overreacting. After all, I'm nobody important here. But that night, I stayed late to finish some reports. The office was nearly empty, just a few stragglers. When I walked past the company directory, I couldn't resist checking it one more time. I typed my name in again. Nothing. Just that empty line. No contact information, no job title, nothing. The sound of the air conditioning humming overhead felt louder than usual in the silence of the nearly empty office. I stared at the screen for a long time, almost waiting for something to change. Then, I saw something strange. One of the managers, Karen, walked by my cubicle.
She was always pleasant to me, never more than a passing greeting here and there. But tonight, she didn't stop to say hello. She just walked by without a word, her eyes darting away from mine like she hadn't seen me at all. I shook it off. I'm just being paranoid. People get busy, right? It's nothing. The next day, I decided to mention it to a coworker, Dave, a guy who'd been here even longer than I had.
He's one of the people I occasionally talk to during lunch breaks, usually about nonsense like TV shows or sports. But when I brought it up, his reaction was odd. I told him about the company directory glitch, how my name wasn't showing up, how I couldn't find myself anywhere. He blinked at me like I'd just told him I'd seen a ghost. Then he just nodded, like he understood exactly what I was talking about, and said, "Yeah, that happened to me too." I didn't know what to make of that. Dave's not the kind of person to joke around like that, especially not about something that felt off. He paused, his mouth tight, and then added, "You should probably report it, you know. They might be updating something." I figured it was just the usual office protocol. Someone would deal with it. But his face, his expression when he said it, looked like he was holding something back. For the next few days, I kept an eye on the directory. My name stayed missing, and no one seemed to care.
When I tried to ask other people about it, they acted like they didn't understand what I was talking about. Some even looked at me like I was the crazy one. Then, things took a turn. I started noticing that no one looked at me the same way anymore. When I'd walk through the office, I'd catch people staring at me, but they'd quickly look away when I glanced back. Karen, the manager who'd passed me by the other night, seemed to be avoiding me now. Every time I tried to make small talk with her, she'd cut me off or just walk away like I wasn't there. One day, I couldn't stand it any longer. I decided to confront HR, try to figure out what the hell was going on. I walked into their office, my palms sweating. But when I opened the door, the woman who works there, Sarah, looked at me with wide, almost panicked eyes. She stared at me for a long moment before forcing a smile. "Can I help you with something, Mark?" I froze for a second. Mark? That wasn't my name. My name is Chris, not Mark. I opened my mouth to correct her, but I couldn't find the words. I just stood there, feeling a wave of nausea rise up in my throat. Sarah's smile faltered, but she didn't seem to notice my confusion. She just waved me inside and told me to take a seat, but I couldn't move. My brain was scrambling to catch up with what had just happened. The moment I left her office, I felt something click. I realized it wasn't just my name in the directory that was missing. It was something else too. I couldn't place it at first, but as I walked back to my cubicle, it hit me. No one had called me by my name in weeks. Not once. They always said, "Hey," or "You." But my name? Gone. I don't know how to explain it. I've been here for 3 years, and suddenly, it's like I never existed. I don't know what's happening, but I feel like I'm disappearing. It's funny, isn't it? How your mind can make something seem so normal when it's really not. I was driving along a stretch of desert highway, just like I've done 1,000 times before. It's the same monotonous stretch of cracked pavement, the same scrubby brush, the same pale yellow horizon. Nothing but dirt, rocks, and dust for miles on end. Just another night on the road. I've been a long-haul trucker for nearly 20 years. It's a life of endless highways, endless nights, endless solitude. But I like it that way. It's easy to get lost in your own thoughts out here. The truck's engine hums like a lullaby, and the world outside fades into a blur of grays and browns under the fading light of the sun. I've come to appreciate the quiet, but sometimes the quiet gets too quiet. That's when things start to get strange. It was close to midnight, maybe later. I had just passed a gas station a few miles back, the last stop for who knows how long. The place was so desolate it looked abandoned. Just a single flickering light in an old shack. I didn't bother stopping. Not my first choice. So I kept pushing on, driving into the night, the only company the occasional glimmer of headlights from cars speeding in the opposite direction. At first, I didn't think anything of it. There was a house a few hundred yards off the side of the highway. Nothing odd about that. Just a run-down shack with some overgrown weeds in the front yard. No one was home, I assumed. It's not like I could see inside. The place was so dark. But then, just as I was about to pass, I saw something in the window. A face. It was only for a second, just a fleeting glance. A silhouette of a person standing there, half hidden in the shadows. It didn't even register in my mind at first. I kept my eyes on the road, not thinking too much of it. People are strange, I guess. Maybe someone lived there. Maybe they were just checking out the passing truck. But I had this feeling in the pit of my stomach, something I couldn't quite explain. It felt like I had been watched, like something was waiting for me. I shook it off, probably just the isolation getting to me. I've been on this highway before. There's nothing out here but tumbleweeds and the occasional lonely house, all of them abandoned or close to it.
But as I drove on, I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was out there, watching. The miles stretched on, each one dragging. The road was empty, the only thing accompanying me the faint, rhythmic beat of the tires rolling over the asphalt. Yet, it wasn't quiet anymore. My eyes kept flicking back to the rearview mirror. Something was off. I thought I saw headlights trailing behind me, but when I checked again, they weren't there. My thoughts kept drifting back to that house and that person in the window. Was it a trick of the light? I didn't know. But the thought of it started to gnaw at me. That face, that fleeting moment, it wasn't right. It didn't sit well with me. I pushed on, trying to distract myself by adjusting the radio, but the signal kept cutting in and out, and all I heard was static. The silence of the desert felt overwhelming. And then, just as I thought I'd put it all behind me, I saw it again. A flicker in the corner of my vision, a shadow moving at the edge of the road. I slammed on the brakes, heart pounding in my chest. The headlights illuminated nothing. The road was empty. But that feeling didn't go away. It was as though something had just disappeared into the darkness. I eased the truck forward again, unsure if I'd imagined it. My hands were shaking now, my palms slick with sweat. I tried to push it all aside, tell myself it was nothing. But the unsettling sense of being watched grew stronger with every mile. Minutes later, I glanced at my rearview mirror once more. This time, there was something there. A pair of headlights, faint, distant, but unmistakable. They weren't moving fast, just keeping pace with me, far enough behind that I couldn't make out the vehicle. But they were there, and they weren't going away. I told myself it was just another car, maybe another trucker on the same stretch of highway. I slowed down, giving them room to pass. But the headlights didn't change speed. They stayed right behind me. My grip on the wheel tightened. The isolation of the highway felt like a weight now, like the whole world was closing in around me. The headlights behind me stayed at the same distance, just out of sight. I kept my speed steady, trying to rationalize it. Maybe they were just following the same route. Maybe they were just going the same way. But something felt off. It was too quiet. No engine revs, no movement from the other vehicle. Just the steady hum of my truck and the nagging feeling that I was being followed. I glanced in the rearview mirror again. This time, I could make out the faint outline of the vehicle, a dark, unmarked sedan. Its headlights gleamed in the mirror, but there were no other lights on the car. No taillights, no side markers, nothing. Just the headlights, shining dimly in the distance, not gaining on me, but not falling behind either. I started to feel a rush of panic building inside me. My breath quickened, and I couldn't seem to shake the feeling that someone was out there, someone who didn't belong. I pushed the accelerator down, but the car kept pace. It felt like they were playing a game with me, trying to stay just close enough to keep me on edge. I glanced to my right, hoping to spot some kind of sign, something to break the monotony of the road. But there was nothing, just the endless stretch of desert. And then I saw it, a small, dilapidated sign for a truck stop. I took a sharp turn onto the dirt road that led off the highway, my tires skidding on the gravel as I sped toward the small lot. Maybe the sedan would keep going, I thought. I didn't want to stay on this highway any longer, but as I reached the lot and braked hard to a stop, I saw something in the corner of my eye. The car. It had stopped too, not on the road, but just off to the side, hidden behind a small patch of scrub. Its headlights were off now, but I could see the faint outline of it in the dark. The sedan hadn't gone anywhere. I froze in the driver's seat. My hands were slick with sweat, my heart pounding in my chest. I didn't know what to do. I had to get out of there. I threw the truck into reverse and stomped on the gas, kicking up dirt as I backed out. The sedan stayed motionless in the shadows, still and silent. I kept reversing, faster this time, until I could get back to the highway. The moment my tires hit the asphalt, I slammed the truck into drive and floored it. The headlights of the sedan didn't follow. The road was empty again. But even as I tore down the highway, the feeling lingered, the sense of being watched, of something just out of sight pressing in on me. It took a long time before I could calm down enough to think clearly. The rest of the night passed without incident. No more cars, no more headlights, no more shadows. But when I reached my destination, something inside me told me it wasn't over. I tried to shake it off. I didn't report it. I didn't tell anyone about the sedan, about the person in the window. No one would have believed me. They would have called me paranoid, crazy. So I kept it to myself. But every time I pass that stretch of road again, I can't help but wonder if that person is still out there, waiting, watching. It was the kind of law firm you'd expect. Sterile, cold, and filled with the musty scent of old paper and dust. I was an intern at one of the most prestigious firms in the city, the kind that took up entire floors of a high-rise, the kind with the endless rows of bookshelves stocked with hundreds of law books, most of which I had never heard of. I had always thought that corporate law was supposed to be glamorous. The gleaming offices, the shiny suits, the big salaries. But what I quickly learned after a few months of sorting through endless paperwork was that the true heart of a law firm wasn't the glamour. It was the archives. And the archives weren't glamorous. The archives were like a giant warehouse of forgotten stories, filing cabinets stacked in rows, some as tall as me, others wobbling precariously as they leaned against each other. The entire floor smelled of mold and old leather, and the hum of the fluorescent lights above created an eerie soundtrack that never seemed to stop. I had never been given an official tour of the place. One day, they just handed me a stack of folders and a keycard and told me to get to work. I remember my first day down there. I wasn't prepared for how overwhelming it would be, the sheer scale of it. My job was simple enough. Find specific files and sort them according to some archaic filing system that made no sense to me. I'd been shown the ropes by an older intern, Karen, who had been there for over a year and had become eerily comfortable with the constant flow of old paper. She was helpful enough, but there was a strange, unspoken distance between us. She'd glance at me occasionally, her eyes tired, as if she knew something I didn't. Her smile was tight, forced, but she never said anything outright. "You'll get used to it," she said, her voice flat and matter-of-fact, as if she was repeating something that had been drilled into her for years. At first, the work was just tedious. Sorting papers, scanning them into the system, reading the names on the files. There was nothing particularly interesting. The firm's archives contained documents that dated back decades, sometimes even centuries. Some of them were in delicate condition, brittle to the touch, like they were moments away from falling apart. The names on the files were, for the most part, of clients long since forgotten, cases that had been settled or resolved. There were oddities in the files, though. Cases that didn't seem to belong in the firm's public records. Strange references, incomplete documents, words and names that didn't seem to make sense. I started noticing them after the second week. The files that didn't belong. At first, I thought I was just being paranoid. There were files labeled with names I'd never seen before, companies that didn't exist, cases that had been closed but were still being stored. Sometimes I'd open a folder only to find it empty, or worse, filled with cryptic notes in handwriting that looked too neat, too deliberate to be anyone's real handwriting. I figured it was just the messiness of a law firm, the sort of things that happen when you're dealing with decades of old paperwork. But as I spent more time in the archives, the unease began to creep in. One night I was working late. The office was empty except for me and a few other interns who were all either in different parts of the building or finishing up their own work. The hum of the fluorescent lights overhead sounded louder than usual. The archives were quieter than I'd ever experienced before. I was seated at my usual desk, a battered old wooden table covered in dust, its surface yellowed with age. I was going through a stack of files, moving them into the appropriate folders, when I noticed something strange. It was a folder I hadn't seen before. It was tucked in the back of the cabinet where I'd been working, behind a stack of other files that hadn't been touched in years. I pulled it out, its thick manila folder heavy in my hands, and I noticed something that instantly unsettled me. It had no label. No client name, no case number, just a faded, illegible stamp in the corner. I opened it slowly, the familiar creak of the paper making my stomach churn. Inside was a single sheet of paper, yellowed with age, and typed with the same mechanical precision of an old typewriter. It wasn't a legal document at all, not in the traditional sense. The paper seemed to be a set of instructions, a set of conditions. "The NDA forbids me from leaving," the first line read. I blinked, unsure whether I had read it right. The rest of the document contained more strange instructions, phrases that didn't make sense, like remain silent, do not disclose, observe without interference. There were also sections filled with odd symbols and phrases in a language I didn't recognize. I flipped through the pages quickly, my heart beating faster as I tried to make sense of what was on the page. There was a paragraph about confidentiality, about secrecy, but it was the kind of language that made me feel like I was looking at something that shouldn't exist in a law firm at all. I was interrupted by a sound, a knock on the door. My head snapped up, and I quickly shoved the folder back into the cabinet, trying to act casual. "Are you still here?" It was Karen. She was standing in the doorway, her eyes scanning the room with a look I couldn't quite read. Her voice was tight. "You should be careful down here, you know." I blinked. "What do you mean?" She stepped into the room slowly, closing the door behind her. Her movements were deliberate, as if she had been rehearsing them. "The archives," she said, her voice low, almost a whisper. "They're not just a storage place. They're different."
They have a way of getting inside your head.
I stared at her, unsure of how to respond. "What are you talking about?" Karen hesitated, glancing at the filing cabinets around us. The air in the room felt thick, stifling. "There are things down here you shouldn't know about. Files that never get processed. People who disappear." She shifted uncomfortably. "It's why they give us non-disclosure agreements. No one ever talks about it, but that's why we all leave eventually. The pressure, the fear, it starts to weigh on you." I frowned. "But I'm just an intern. What could—" She raised her hand to silence me. "Don't ask questions you don't want the answers to," she warned, her voice breaking slightly. "Just finish your shift and don't come back down here." I nodded quickly, though her words didn't sit well with me. She turned to leave, but paused in the doorway. "Oh, and one more thing," she said, her back still to me. "If you find another folder like that one, don't look inside. They'll find out. They always do." The door clicked shut behind her, leaving me in the silence of the archives. I stared at the filing cabinet in front of me, my hands trembling as I looked down at the spot where I had shoved the strange folder back. I knew I had to leave. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong, but every part of me, every rational part, told me I should just finish my work and go home. But as I walked toward the door, something made me look back. The cabinets, the folders, they were all arranged in perfect order, like they had been waiting for me. And I knew then that I couldn't leave. Not really. The NDA forbids me from leaving. It was the first time I had felt the weight of those words, but it wouldn't be the last. I haven't left the firm yet. It's been months, and now I'm starting to wonder if I'll ever be able to. I'm not sure I want to know what happens if I try. This was LurmoStories, where the scariest part is how many people said, "Same thing happened to me." If any of those details overlapped with your life, don't worry, unless you start seeing patterns too.